Hi, it's Steve Schmidt, your host for Maker Connect. Today I have Jeff Mills on. Jeff works at iMirror Technology. Jeff is the president. He's leading their Lead to Cash initiative from pre-sales through fulfillment. Jeff and I had a chance to talk before the show a couple of times. I also learned that Jeff wrote a really nice note to me that I cannot find in my email. I feel like a complete jerk right now. We had a chance to get to know each other and the vibe was good. Hopefully, Jeff, we can revive that once I find this really nice email you sent to me. Technology's a bitch, right? So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Excited to be here, Steve. I work in the AI space. Clearly, you have automation to delete the spam emails for me, so that's totally fine. Whatever.
Yeah, see, technology was working in our favor. It just didn't work for our specific little communication line, Jeff. But like you are on the show. We reached out to you. You're kind of this verbose leader in the space. You've done some writing. You have some really hefty thoughts on AI. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing, where you're at in your life, and about iMirror Technology, as if we have no idea what it is that you do.
Sure. So yeah, I'm the president of a company called iMirror. iMirror's in the AI space. We structure the unstructured data that powers the algorithms that we're using every day. So to use something like a Chat GPT type of software technology to leverage any of the types of AI systems that are coming out there, they're trained with data. iMirror helps prepare that data. Think of it as the food for AI, for it to go in and be able to create the algorithms with the output that you guys leverage every day. So that data needs to be structured, especially if it's image data or video data or even text data in a lot of spaces is very unstructured data. So we structure that data to power the algorithms that you're using every day.
Wild. I'm looking at ChatGPT differently now than I did probably the first time we talked, Jeff. In my personal life, maybe what we were talking about, went and met with my person and they said something about the word unbiased. And I said, I know ChatGPT is extremely unbiased. And I think there's a beauty to that, honestly. And I want to talk about that because a lot of people want to talk about the integrity of the data. And I always say, well, sure. But I love the fact that this is unbiased data. It's untouched by humans. There's no emotion behind it. And you're dealing in these big sets of it. So talk to me about that, like taking the emotion out of data and saying data is the data.
Yeah, so in some ways, I get in arguments with people from time to time, fun conversations, I should say, not arguments, around bias specifically. There's times where bias is important. People like to say we want all the data to be unbiased. We want these kind of unbiased things, but the reality is it depends on what you're creating. If you're creating a algorithm for East Coast pizza, I like to use New York as my example. You went with a bunch of people to train that data from Chicago, you might end up with something that looks more like lasagna, a big giant deep dish pizza full of massive amounts of cheese, right? But that's not really what somebody's looking for when they're in Manhattan looking for New York East Coast pizza.
Yeah.
In that case, you actually want bias in the system to understand what a thin crust New York pizza looks like. It's supposed to be a pizza that you pick up. You're supposed to be able to fold it, and the tip's not supposed to flip all the way down. It's supposed to kind of just slowly bend, right? There's a very specific kind of pizza
for a slice of New York pizza right now.
that happens in New York. Now, if you let it be too biased and you only train it with people who are coming from the village, you're going to end up with pizza from John's. Like that's what's going to end up coming out.
Yeah.
You're going to end up with like something, so there's a balance between having it be completely open-ended and you don't really know where it came from. But then if you have it too closed in, then it's going to be so specific that you're not going to actually get enough. So then I kind of joke around and say something like, you want people just from all the boroughs to rate the pizza restaurants. And then at that point, you would get down to maybe what the most authentic top 5 pizza places are in New York. But
yeah,
if you open it up to, again, people from Chicago, you might end up with the wrong pizza place. And so there is this balance between what is it that you're asking your AI algorithm to create? Because at the end, what you want to do is make sure that you're creating a product that works.
Yeah.
And so, it's based on the data that's being trained. If you think about what you're using on Netflix, it's recommending you a show to watch. Mm-hmm. It's completely biased. It's biased based off of all of the shows you've watched previously. You're training the algorithm. You're structuring the data all the time. Every time you watch something and say you like it, you're training the data set to say, these are the things Steve likes based off of that.
Talk to me
You're
about
being
YouTube
showed more
and data.
stuff.
What about YouTube and data? It seems like they would have an unsurmountable, big, heaping pile of data.
Tons. Yeah, tons. Meta's probably got the one of the biggest groups. And the reason why I think Meta's data is really interesting specifically is because you're structuring the data for them all the time. Every time you take a picture, every time that you post something, you're saying, this is where I'm at, this is who I'm with, this is what we're doing. This is and you're literally going through and you're structuring that unstructured data for them
Yeah.
all the time.
So
Same things
there's,
happening with YouTube on YouTube clips and all that. You know, it's all going in. People are structuring that data for the client. Now, in the case that we work in, most of that data is unstructured, and there isn't a community that's going to just structure it for you. So, for instance, if you're talking about self-driving cars, you got to train a self-driving car to understand what a stoplight is, what a stop sign is, what a intersection looks like. What
yeah, but there's
you know,
beauty to that too, right? Because that car is not going to drive drunk. It's not going to run a stop sign.
100%.
I think that's the beauty. I mean, if you really look at data and what it's done in a lot of instances, whether it's building smart cities or large data sets for corporations to digest marketing information, I feel like the true benefit of the data is how it is used because everybody has large data that they can go get.
Yeah,
And the best example I can give you, Jeff, is let's say it's a small business and they go, hey, we need a sales team. The sales team goes, yeah, we got to go buy this Zoom info. Hey, I got to go buy all of my potential customers' data. And we load it up and we automate a sequence and we go, why doesn't it work? You know, and it's kind of like, well, we've sort of matured out of that data set. That might have worked 12 years ago.
right.
But as I look at the data in our revenue business, that's what people come to me a lot of times. Say, well, what does this mean? And you really look at human behavior and those percentages have changed. And I think that what we've seen in small businesses is launching that is very beneficial. Focus on the customer who's going to be your best fit. That's the kind of data that's going to keep your attrition low. And those sort of data variables are still very valuable to small businesses versus these big macro data sets that they maybe don't need and they think they need, but really they should be drilling down and paying for the data that's best suited to align their message with the people who are best to receive it. Talk to me about that because that
Yeah.
seems to
So
be a new hype train in sales.
kind of spin it a bit into like how I would hire somebody. See,
Yeah.
so like one of the things I look for when I'm hiring people is, do they have a love for learning?
Okay.
Do they constantly want to learn? Right? Do they want to get better? Do they want to become, things are changing constantly in business. Things are
Yeah.
changing constantly in the world. Unless you're constantly learning and you're leveraging the new data inputs you're getting every day, the market's getting every day, the world's getting every day, you're becoming obsolete, right? You're going to be replaced very,
Yeah.
very quickly, right? You can't just, some things stand the test of time, but few do. I mean, most things are changing rapidly. This is a negotiation conversation at some point, right? And in
Oh yeah, we're getting into it.
negotiations
Yeah.
themselves, right? Based on the data inputs you're getting in real time, you're going to change your behavior as that conversation moves forward.
Mm-hmm.
I think in AI, I think in data and the data sets you're getting, you better be making sure you have a constant loop of information that's going through, that's constantly getting you better all the time, that's learning all the time, that's moving in with the most relevant new data sets that are coming through all the time to make sure that it's moving up and progressing.
Yeah.
If not, that data set's not very valuable. It's like the guy you hire or the woman you hire because they have a Rolodex.
Yeah.
Like when did your Rolodex get created and when did it end? Because if the Rolodex is from, I don't know, 3 years ago, it may be worthless at this point. People switch jobs all the time, right? So I mean, 3 years
Yeah.
ago, if your
Good
Rolodex didn't
example.
keep getting updated, you'd be I don't know who
Yeah.
you're calling.
So is it
So
safe
yeah.
to say that, okay, so take a $1.5 million business, 58% margins, 4 employees, and they want to grow. How do they leverage that data? They have to go out and hire a data scientist. They have to hire somebody who's going to be able to make that data actionable for them, or how do they at smaller scales? And then we'll bump up to the enterprise because we're going to talk about negotiation next. But I want to inform those people because there's a lot of those listeners too. Like, how do I use data and not pay $100,000 for a large data set that I can't consume? Where's the nimble data at? Where's the nimble providers who can give me what I need to accelerate my business?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's always about outcomes. What problem are you facing right now that you need an outcome for? I
Say it's
think
revenue.
understanding what the problem is, though. But see, even revenue, like what is it around revenue that's holding you
Yeah.
back? Is it that you don't know who to reach out to? Like, is it
That's what the data
really,
will tell you, right?
well, I mean, potentially, but maybe not. I mean, it depends on what problem you're trying to solve. I think we
Sure.
still have to, Steve, at some point understand what problem we're actually trying to solve. We can't just
Sure.
say data solve all of my problems. We have to say, look, here are my top 3 problems right now. We
Yeah.
can say revenue, but then we got to cut that down 3 more times. It's that I literally don't have the data of where my prospect lives.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take that one very specifically.
Yeah.
If the data I have is based on their home office, but not based on where they actually live, is that good or bad right now in today's
That's
market?
good right now because if I have to send them a gift, I need to get it to their house.
To their house, right? So you need their home data more so than you need
Yes.
their office data.
Correct.
Okay, so if I'm going to go on a road show, which I tend to do, if I go and reach out to people and say, I'm going to be in San Francisco, California, I'm
Yep.
going to be in downtown San Francisco. I know your office is there. I want to swing by on Friday and meet you. The odds of them meeting with me are about, I don't know, not very high because they're
Hmm.
probably not going to be in San Francisco on Friday.
Right.
If the person lives in Fremont, California, which is about 45 minutes south from San Francisco, then I reach out to them and say, hey, I'm going to be in Fremont on Friday. Would love to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you at Jimmy's. They're going to be like, yeah, for sure. You're going to come, you're coming, actually the
Yeah.
Bear is a good example. The Bear is a restaurant in Fremont. Like they'll come meet me at the Bear to have lunch
Yeah.
because I'm right by them. I'm coming to them.
That's worth a lot of money.
That is worth something, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, I think again, the problem is you weren't getting to your client. You needed
Yeah.
their other data to solve the problem, which is for them to meet with you in this case. Whatever
Mm.
those things are, we always have to get down to what is the actual problem I'm solving.
Yeah.
And you can't just say, "Oh, I want revenue data to solve it." Like, okay, but we have to get down to the micro problem. Then
Okay.
we could use macro data maybe to help solve it, but you still need to know
Mm.
what specific issue that you're really
Mm.
needing to solve. What's the problem at hand?
AI negotiation. Is it solving a problem? What is the opportunity?
So I think for large vendors right now, AI in negotiation is basically becoming the strongest procurement team that doesn't bend. I don't think that's great. I still believe in people, Steve. I still believe that relationships are built on trust.
Hmm.
And I still believe in the long run, you need to work in partnership with companies and they need to trust each other back and forth.
Yeah.
I think that AI and negotiation, we're getting into a lot of these things right now where you're looking at kind of types of auctions and things like that are
Yeah.
basically being held. AI's, running the auction. It's just becoming a bid process and things like that. That's fine if everything's just a straight commodity and it all tastes exactly the same.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the pizza example. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to a fair or something where you just got like a piece of pizza that was horrific, like
Oh,
unedible.
I live in South Dakota, so yes, that's all
Yeah.
we have is buffets with horrific pizza. Yep.
So like I don't want the cheapest one necessarily. I want what I want. I want what's going to solve my problem. I want something that's good and tasty, and I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that. And, so if the AI negotiations is just about price, and that's basically what it's fundamentally around right now, is
Yeah.
figuring out tactics to have price. I think it's also around having some automation, that's in there that kind of,
Drives the
has,
process.
well, governance, even like it's really helping create governance, and it's
Yeah.
helping kind of with that automation of that process. I think for really big companies, some of that governance stuff is good. It holds to audits. It shows that, like, oh, we had 5 bidders, we came down with
Yes.
this. So it's crossing those
Let's
types of things.
double click on that. So is
Yeah.
that historical data valuable to teams and negotiations, i.e., I have a vendor 2 years ago. This is the play that was kind of run. This is the result. Like, is that historical data worth pulling forward to study and learn to have a better negotiation with that same vendor today?
Yeah, for sure. If you have that data, that's very helpful data. I think it's really helpful in larger software companies specifically. I
Yeah.
think in services companies it gets a little bit more difficult, or in solutions companies it gets a little more difficult. because a lot of these kind of AI product companies that are out there have a bunch of inputs they're leveraging, but you need
Yeah.
to have a lot of customers. So it can't, you back to your $1.5 million client. I think it's really hard for them to make that work
Yeah.
because they just don't have enough data points for it to really be clear.
But is there like a socialized data consumption channel? So where's the Amazon of data, the Amazon servers of data for small businesses so they can get similar insights that maybe are shared across multiple users?
Yeah, but I mean, now you're
That's pretty
talking about
broad insights, right?
well, I mean, now you're just talking about sharing data, right? So then if you have a lot of salespeople watching, it's like salespeople all sharing their contacts with each other. Like
Sure.
I worked pretty hard to, create the relationships I have, but if I could just click a button and give Steve all the relationships that I've created over the last 20 years, like would I do that as long as I got Steve's relationships back? Like
It's
maybe,
been a model that's been tried. Trust me, I've seen it. It
but
doesn't work. Yeah, it's reciprocity,
it's,
right? It's a value
it's,
exchange, which
it's
negotiation is an exchange of value, which to me, you said it best. Like, yeah, sure, there's benefit to that, but I don't really like it either. I think that the human element of being guided by AI is good, but ultimately, I think AI in its current state, how I use it as a person, is I'm benefiting greatly in my personal life by using unbiased data. And I'm starting to look at that same unbiased data and thinking about it holistically across business and life. And it's helped me immensely. We run ChatGPT into a program prompt into our funnel. I don't need to feel a certain way about our funnel. I just want it to tell me because it's extremely unbiased. It has the accurate run rates, the close rates. It's going to tell me roughly what we're going to do.
yeah.
And I find that, accepting the truth of that as a business leader is something you have to do. That data has to be absolute for me. Once I choose to use it as a guidepost, I have to evaluate it and use it and explain to people why we're doing it. I find that that's the best way. Describe to me when people make big decisions with data, whether that's in a negotiation, that decision could be, hey, the last time we were negotiated with General Mills, we found this out, but I have some secret information from a community on a current rate, right? So we're going to load that up. And that's the Scud missile because I have these current market rates and that's our secret tactic. Like, what is the tactics that you see being socialized right now? What are the tactics that you teach, that you employ daily? And is AI involved in any of those that you're observing or that you're using day to day, Jeff?
So for me, no, I'm not using AI to make negotiation decisions for me
Okay.
today. And that's because ultimately, I believe that I'm in a relationship with who I'm working with on the other side, and we're working together
Yeah.
to find a solution to what we need to figure out. And AI isn't helping me with that because I'm not trying to normally. I'm not trying to. Okay, so when you talk about pricing, I think we even talked about this in our first conversation. We talked about a sandwich or something. We
We
said like
did.
basically, a sandwich might cost $5. It might cost, $10 or something like that. So negotiation isn't from zero to infinite, right? It's
Uh-huh.
from, in this case, $5 to $10. And so then, on my side, I might be willing to go to like 7, and they might be willing to come down to, 8 or something. So we're really just negotiating between 7 and 8 if I want the sandwich and they want me to have the sandwich. And we're literally just negotiating into this very small window at that point, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to price. I think AI can help with that very specific piece. But the reality is that the negotiation started a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
The negotiation started at like in the lobby. It started at hello. It started out in the car. It started like before we ever even got into the office.
Yeah.
And so, that relationship's been being built the whole entire time. That trust is being built the entire time.
Yeah.
As that trust is being created, all of a sudden, that 10 that was going to maybe only go to 8 or to 7 might actually stick closer to the 10 because they're going like, no, this is different than the others. This is
Yeah.
this is different to me than something else. Oh, I'm actually really trust this team. They have a much better quality product. They have a much better, all these things. And so at that point, you've already actually pushed it over to the right, where data points from AI is based on this big collection of data, which at that point might have gotten you to, yeah, it's going to be between 5 and 10 from the beginning, and you're really negotiating between 7 and 8. That's probably where it would have gotten you like pretty quick.
Sure.
But that doesn't, like, I already know that. I
Okay.
probably already know that like instinctively,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm more worried about the relationship that's being created when it comes to this part of business, and then what's the problem I'm really solving. People ask me all the time, Jeff, you've been building companies for a long time. You've had a bunch of success stories in your life, and a bunch of exits and yada yada yada. Tell me the secret to sell it. It stop selling and start
Great
solving.
space. Yeah.
Start solving. Solve. Don't sell. Solve.
Yeah.
Solve their problem. If you solve their problem, they will pay you for it.
Yeah.
I promise you.
Pay you handsomely.
Yeah, they will pay you more because you solved it. Anyone who thinks that, especially in negotiation, right, that it's about convincing somebody to do something, be very careful, because the closer you get to conning from solving, the further away from where you want to be. The relationships I'm in are lifetime relationships. Steve, you and I have connected. Like, you need me, you call me, you ask me a question, like, I'm going to respond to you for life. Yeah. So like, once you're into my network, once we're working together, once we're doing this stuff, like, we're in it now. You know what I mean? And so it's not about trying to get someone to pay that dollar more, that 5% more. It's about coming up with a solution that's going to get them to want to work with you time and time and time again. That's what we're really doing. That's what I'm teaching my team to do.
How do you teach them? Is it leading by example? Is it modules that you're teaching them? Is it observation? Because I think that's something that people say, well, yeah, I have a negotiation culture, and that conversation to me goes, okay, cool. Tell me about it. So
I think when I hire people, I put them in the 3 buckets. Probably shouldn't be saying this in a recorded video, but I basically put people into 3 buckets. One bucket I call my American idols. Okay. They are the people with all this talent, but they've just never been given a platform to succeed.
Yeah.
Okay. And that person could be a bartender. It could be a TSA agent. It's people that I come across in my day when I'm traveling around the world, where they just catch my eye and I go, that person has something. I notice a TSA agent. I'm not even kidding. I've given my card to TSA agents before, where, like, in this stressful, like, monotonous role, that they're smiling and they're like, helping people unpack their bag, and they're like helping them through. I'm like, yeah, that one. The bartenders are great. Yeah. On their feet all day, right? Connecting with people, working extremely hard, understand numbers on the fly. Like, there's a bunch of things there. I have a dear friend now who I hired, who was a bartender when I hired them, brought them into sales. They've been, 300K plus enterprise sales rep now for years. Amazing. Was a bartender when we first met. And so I'm looking for these American idols that I can bring in, take them under my wing, show them the ropes, and scale them up. And that's kind of like, seed company, Series A. I'll bring a couple people like this in. Yep. And get them to help, help kind of lead gen and do all that kind of stuff. So kind of what, like ADRs or SDRs or something like that. A lot of times we'll start in those kind of roles, and then you'll see which ones come out. Yeah. Then on the opposite end of that, I used to call it my Celine Dion's. Like, they're such big stars. They're so great. They stopped going on tour. They don't even travel. Huh. They just sit in one town and everyone comes to them and they sell out every night. Like, that's how good they are. And so I'll hire normally those kind of ends of the spectrum. What I try to stay away from is the steady eddies, the middle, because generally in sales, people end up in the middle because they're in the middle. Like, that's what they are. Like, once in a while you'll catch someone who's passing through on their way to Celine Dion stardom. But like, most of the time, if someone's on their like 6th sales job, 5th sales job, and they're like not awesome, but they're not like, they might be an 80%er. They'll close a few deals. They'll push them through. I say, look, there's a lot of big companies out there that have to fill a lot of cubes. Yeah. And you should definitely work for one of those companies. But for me, I'm generally in like a hyper growth company type of mindset, where I need people who are ready to like really come in and put it together. So I look for 3 things when I'm hiring people. Generally, I'm looking for, what's your work ethic? Yeah. Do you work crazy hard? And do you believe them when they answer you? Because everybody's going to probably say, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Well, but I'm going to dig into it.
Okay.
I'm going to dig, I'm going to dig into it. I'm going to figure out who you are pretty quick, Steve.
Yeah.
Do you work hard? You can't be great. I'm sorry. Like, everyone talks about work-life balance now. And, Ferriss writes like the 4-hour work week or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, like, you think Tim Ferriss works 4 hours a week? Come on. Like, let's be real here.
Good title.
It's a good time, but like at the end of the day, like the idea, get rich quick, whatever, like this stuff's not real. This isn't real stuff. Like, if you want to be great at what you do, you got to put in the work. You have to work incredibly hard. I don't care if you're in music. I don't care if you're in sports. I don't care if you're in, doesn't matter what you do. You got to work hard if you want to be great at it. So work ethics still, to me, super, super important.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is, how much do you add to the company culture every day? Are you great to be around? Do you pick up other people around you all the time? Steve, if you're those 2 things by itself, the odds of you being successful, super high.
Mm-hmm.
I work really hard. I'm great to be around.
Yeah.
Like, if you're those 2 things, everybody wants you to win. Everyone's going to back you up. And then the third one's always measurable results, right? So, at some point you got to score, right? At some point you've got to close deals. At some point you got to put up the numbers. You got to do the thing. The odds of you getting to 3, though, if you work hard and are great to be around, super, super high.
Yeah.
Once in a blue moon, you get someone who puts up numbers right away, and they don't work that hard, and they're not that great to be around.
Yeah.
But I promise you this, everybody misses eventually. Everyone does.
Yeah.
That person's gone the second they miss, they're out.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I'm looking for people who work really hard, great to be around, hit their measurable results.
Yeah.
And those people will do really well. I'm very blessed that I've worked with, amazing, talented, I work with some incredibly smart people, and obviously, like, talent and being smart and just having that kind of crazy intelligence. I've got PhDs in linguistics and Stanford trained surgeons and, stuff working for me. But if they're not great to be around and work hard and hit measurable results, the rest of that stuff doesn't really matter. So my first thing is, do they have those 3 things? If they have those 3, then I start getting more excited about, oh, wow, and look at this specialty skill set they have. And wow, look at this other knowledge they have. But before I get excited about that, if they don't pass the first piece, I don't really care. Like, it doesn't matter. The rest of it doesn't really matter. I think we talked about the leading rushers in the NFL.
Yeah.
We talked. Was that?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as Emmitt Smith is the number 1 leading rusher in the NFL.
Yes.
People always talk about him. Then they'll be like LaDainian Tomlinson or whatever. They'll come up with 5 other names.
Yeah.
But Frank Gore is number 2. Frank Gore played for the Niners, played for some other teams. No one ever puts Frank Gore up there because they don't because he's not like a highlight reel guy, but he played for, over 10 years, carrying the ball like 800 yards a year forever.
Yeah.
Because he's a workhorse who everyone loved being around. So they wanted him in his locker room. He worked super hard. Great guy to be around.
That just proves that the
numbers.
The data, we're biased, right? The data proves that Frank Gore's too, but nobody would answer that because we're biased.
They won't, because he's not a highlight reel guy. Yeah. But it's okay. I want grinders who are going to get me 800 yards a year. I don't care if you get me 1,200 for 1 year and only play for 2. I want 800 every year for 10, for 12, for 15.
Well, let's flip the script here for a bit. Tell me the biggest story. We're talking numbers. What's the biggest negotiation you've ever been a part of? It doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest deal size, but the one where you were like, holy shit, this is significant. I need to get this right.
I've been part of some amazing deals. I worked for some really cool companies doing some interesting things. I think one of the early deals in my career that changed the way I looked at things. I was working at Yahoo. I was in the Yahoo shopping team at the time. We were working in, e-commerce. So, this is like, people are now selling stuff online. My aunt's like, I'm never going to put my credit card online. You're crazy. This is like, late 90s, early 2000s.
eBay. Yeah.
This is back in the beginning. And this is probably 2001, somewhere in that range at this point when this came up. But we had a lot of great data, talking about data. And so I'm talking to these e-commerce vendors, and I will stay away from the names, but in the gifting space, let's say it's in the gifting space. And basically, they were getting sick of media companies pitching them CPM-based advertising.
Yep.
I I don't need branding. I'm not looking for branding. I only care about transactions. I only care about transactions. Okay. So at the time, we're looking at the CPM, we're negotiating CPMs, and they're pushing me on it. Again, I don't care about branding. And so I said, well, it's interesting. One of these was a flowers type of account, selling flowers. And they said, yeah, I don't care about branding. I said, well, that's interesting. I think at Yahoo, we'd be really interested in actually having Yahoo flowers. So since you don't care about branding, would you let us put it in like a purple and yellow kind of cyclone box with Yahoo on it and have you ship them out that way? And you can just pay per transaction and just make transaction dollars. And the guy started yelling at me, you punk kid, because I'm like, I'm like probably 23 or something at the time. He starts yelling at me. I go, oh, you want it in your box? He goes, yeah. I go, okay, so you care about the brand a little bit, is what you're saying. So the brand does matter a little bit, is what you're saying, right? Yeah. And he's like, okay, I got your point, or whatever. So it's like, okay, so brand does matter, but really you want to pay per transaction. Well, we had the data. We had already, had a few seasons around these big holidays and stuff, went through and started running the math and said, look, if they paid me $5 per order, they paid us $5 per order. Based on the numbers, we should drive this many orders. Actually, they're going to pay us 3x more than they were going to pay us if we charged them on a CPM basis.
Take that.
Wait a minute. So like we literally went through double, triple, quadruple check the math, went with less vendors instead of more vendors, brought the vendor amount down, and we increased the revenue by like 300% by doing that. And so what it taught me was a few things. One, brand does matter, whether people want to say that matters or not. So like, I got away with it a little bit, Steve. Most people wouldn't get away with it. So I don't really fully advise, pushing a client that way. But, I built a little different. I put my neck out there a little bit to prove a point and got away with it. But then what I realized was that deal structure matters. People are biased. They're biased on, I don't want to pay a CPM. I don't want to pay a full-time equivalent rate. I want to pay based on something, I want to pay based on the deliverables.
Oh, of course. We all want that.
Oh, yeah, but in this case, run the math. You might find really quick that they haven't even realized that when they pay you $5 per order, or in my space, instead of paying me, say, a $5 FTE rate, they pay me 10 cents per annotation, you might find out that like you're actually going to make 300% more or 200% more, or like a significantly higher amount. Because even people don't realize on the other side they want safety nets. They don't realize that they're about to pay more for it.
Oh, sure.
And so then if you can really look at it, run the math, and you have, again, you work for a good product. That's why you work for the company you work for, because you believe in what you're selling. Again, we're not conning, we're solving. So I know I'm going to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, you can structure a deal that ends up paying you significantly more by giving the customer exactly what they asked for.
What a concept.
Exactly what they asked for, and they're going to pay you significantly more for it.
Yeah.
Because they're in their head just want to make sure that they have, that they have a floor. And you got 20 other companies coming in that aren't as good as you, and they've already been burned 3 or 4 times in their career, so they're not going to do that. Listen to them. Run the math. Get creative in your deal structure. That's negotiating. Negotiating is not conning somebody to spend $1 more. Negotiating is finding a win-win proposition that scales the deal.
Yeah.
That gets you more revenue in the end.
Why do people fail at that so often? Do you think it's the execution of it?
First is, I don't think people get out of their own way a lot, Steve. They don't take a deep breath, calm down, and like do the math. So one of my interviewing tactics, I ask, what's 5% of 700?
35.
Okay. How did you do it?
Divided by, that wasn't right, was it?
No, it's right.
I don't know. I think I took like 35 divided by 7. I was like, that's 5. That sounds right.
Yeah,
It was like
okay.
a
That's
loose
actually,
little like
but by the way, that was, I mean, like, you know how many people fail answering that question?
probably 99% out of 100.
A ton of people don't know what 5% of 700 is. Okay. Bartender gets it right every time.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I was a
What,
bartender.
what's a bartender do? Bartender goes, what's 10% of 700?
70,
Okay. What's half of that?
35.
Right. Like they just, but that, what you're using right there is common sense, rational inputs. Okay. Most of the time, we don't know the answer. We're asked so many questions. We don't know the answer, but we know an answer that can get us to the answer, right? So it's being able to stop, slow down, take a deep breath. I don't know what 5% of 840 is. Okay. But I know that 10% is 84.
Yeah.
So 5% would be 42. It's going to be half of 84. Like, you can get there very quickly when you do these things. Most people can't do it, Steve.
I got to comment on that. Something that I was, I guess, as a compliment in hindsight, probably didn't take it as such because my ego was so big at the time I didn't need compliments. But I always came prepared with that sort of math, right? So as a seller, I knew if I wanted to get a deal across the line, not only did I need to tie it to the end, that I needed to show the return on investment in a very believable
Yes.
way. I always knew
Yes.
that. I don't know why. I
Yes.
guess why don't more people do that? Because I
People are selling features and functionality now instead of selling solutions to problems. That's why.
yeah,
People are coming in and saying, but my feature's so
even in
much
this
better than
economy.
their feature. They're going off of the, like, my training says that the, magic lasso is 5% more efficient than the blah, 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 whatever in somebody
Yeah.
else's
What if I
SaaS
don't need the
software.
magic lasso in the first
Yeah.
place?
By the way, screw the magic lasso. I care about the output.
Yeah.
I don't care about your lasso. I don't care about your, CRM data point number 462. What I care about is whatever the problem is for that person that day. It's not your feature list.
Sure.
If you're selling features and functionality, you're in a tough, like, I think you're in a really, really tough world right now.
Well, and enterprise sales is interesting too, because if I'm an enterprise seller, I'm bringing this up as a separate segment. We talked about small business. I'm selling to enterprises. I have to look at the stock market and go, okay, public companies, publicly traded. I can really observe the behaviors here. I'm trying to sell into this line of business. I understand the economy's hard. That kind of enterprise seller mentality involves a lot of data points. So if you work for a more mature company, they have a marketing arm that's over here. They have a sales arm that's over here. Here's where we've seen the biggest problem. If you're looking at, call it sales and marketing, it's that they're not using the same data sets. So I'm acting on the same thing, trying to get the same result using two different pathways and not even the same data. And so talk
No,
to me about
and
what
you can't.
happens when that happens.
But again, I go back. What you're bringing up right there is actually very. I don't want to compliment you, Steve, because I know your ego can't take it, so I want to be careful.
I'm a recovering ego. I'm trying.
Oh, okay. Well, let me compliment you then.
Yeah,
So then
it's sitting right here on the desk. We can put it back in there.
Then I can do it. So what you're touching on there in enterprise sales is the negotiation isn't just about numbers. The negotiation is about everything that's going on within that company at that time.
Yeah.
I happened to be working with a customer where their CEO was just displaced recently.
Yeah.
Okay. Funding could be drying up right now. Whatever. So their problems are different. Now, if I come in there right now around dollars and cents around, well, your contract states, type stuff, and I don't come in as a friend,
partner
who says,
friend,
look,
better.
you guys are going through some tough stuff right now, and I want to be there for you. I'm your first call when you're going through these tough times, and I'm going to be there to help. Instead, I'm using data points around how I can make another cent per whatever, or another dollar per X.
Yeah.
You just lost not a client, you just lost a relationship forever. But by going proactively and saying, how can I help you right now? Let me do this for you right now.
Yeah.
You have a relationship forever. And by the way, that person might be laid off in the next week, literally.
Yeah.
And so if they do get laid off, who do you think their first call is going to be at their next job?
Not Ghostbusters.
I mean, it's probably going to be you,
Yeah.
And then if they do survive and stay, who do you think they're going to thank? And this is not in the data though, Steve. So that is where like the human in the loop, that we are still relevant, my friends. Even though I work in AI and I've been in data and AI and all these spaces for a really long time, I promise you, human intelligence, emotional intelligence, EQ,
it's at a premium
IQ,
right now.
All of that is through the it's super important. Communication is really, really important.
I've learned in my personal life, talking about this self-awareness, I'm starting to embody it more in business. I guess because I have the luxury of running a company, it's kind of like I've talked about it with my team. And I said, it's interesting. In life, we talk about these things, boundaries and space, and how it can and lead to really great relationships. But yet a lot of marketing and sales, it feels like those suffocated moments where you're like, come on, please. And then it's like gone, right? Instead of like this truly trying to get an understanding. And then we talk about attrition. We wonder why. Well, it's not a fit. And even in a bad economy, I'm willing to pay for things if they're making my life better. And we saw a massive exodus of spending in SaaS when people said, I'm going to reduce this money because it's not benefiting me anyways. Shit, I didn't even use it. And the SaaS world goes, oh no, all the licenses that we sold that were never used are now canceled. The shareholders are going to cry. We got to call our friends, sell more big deals, exchange more deals. And I saw this massive erosion of trust because things were exposed like SaaS margins at 88%. No matter what, if you buy at the end of the month, you're going to get 50% off your data costs. And so even if that behavior doesn't scare people away. Let me give you a more tangible example of data, in my opinion.
Let's take that one for a second. The SaaS one.
Yeah. Okay.
What gets me, and I'll come right back to you. I'm so sorry.
They're good.
Why in SaaS do they sell seats?
I feel it's built around the model, right? I mean, it's similar to I used to sell cellular lines, right? But then they added a number. To your point, seats are just a little opening to access.
Yeah, but so they like seats because they're like renewables, basically, right? And so they sell these seat licenses, and they come through. That's like a Sandhill Road thing, right? An investor thing. By selling seats, you're restricting access.
It's true.
I want you to use the stuff. You should be selling usage
Consumption.
more than seats, and you should be helping people consume. See, selling seats and licenses, you're getting people to sign up for something. By selling usage, you're actually solving their problem. They're using what you sold, right? So if I sell a bike license, they're not using it. If I sell usage, then they start using it. Now, I understand that when they're not using it, you're still getting paid, and that's why it's good. Yeah. It's like a gym membership or something, right? It's like my Peloton membership.
Yeah.
Whether I ride the bike or run on the treadmill, they get paid. Yeah. They do not want to be held to whether I ride the bike or run the treadmill, because they're like, he's not going to use it more than 3 times a year. So they don't want to do that. But what comes with that means is you're also first to get cut, because you're not actually solving their problem. If you were solving their problem, they would be using your stuff.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, I think that data sets the SaaS company up sometimes incorrectly, because they're selling seats instead of actually selling problem solving. Whoa.
Boom, look at the balloons. What just happened? That was amazing. The boom, you popped a balloon. I've never seen such a thing in my life. That is a first. Can that happen again?
I can do some Google thing just happened. There's like a bunch of these things. That was not on purpose.
That was great. We've never had such a thing before, Jeff. Okay, we're gonna wrap up here. We could talk all day. Let's get out of the AI trenches for a second and get into the storytelling mode. I want you to tell everybody out there listening, if they're on either side of this in procurement or in sales, what they can do today to get better at negotiation, or like something they can tangibly say, I'll go do that right now.
So this is going to, I don't know, you guys probably interview 100 people, and probably 100 people would say, I would think the same thing. Know the pain point that you're solving, solve the problem. When you go to solve the problem, to the point you made earlier, have the numbers that back up how you're going to make it ROI successful for them. Again, don't come in and sell. If you're selling seats and you're selling features and functionality, You're not really getting there. Understand how what you're selling results for them into the output they need, into the ROI they need.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get creative around the pricing to back into that, you should be able to increase your revenue with them significantly, assuming you can solve the actual problem.
What if they
So
say, I'm not good at relationships, I need to get better understanding people? What's some advice you'd give for them?
in this day and age, I mentioned that the negotiation starts way earlier than people think. So I'm old. I used to have long hair. It used to be darker. I would say that as you walk to the conference room,
Yeah.
you're already in the meeting. The meeting doesn't start when you sit down in the conference room. It started the second you said hi to the person at the reception. As that happens online, now that we're meeting in these little square boxes, make room for that connection. Make room. Have that walk to the conference room.
Yeah.
Don't just come in and be like, hi, so open up to, template 47. Like, come in. How are you doing? How was your weekend? What's going on in your life? Connect with them. Connect. Pretend that you're in the lobby. Pretend you're now walking into the elevator. You're now taking the elevator. You're now walking down the, go through those motions in your mind with the customer, the prospect, the employee, your boss, everyone you connect with. Because right now we come on and we sit down right in this square box and start.
Yeah.
And that's
shot clock's on. Got to go, right?
You're not in the right mood. You're not in the right frame. And the person you're talking to is not there either.
Yeah.
You have to get them there first.
I talked about this. I want to get your feedback. I said there needs to be a service. So this is a business idea. You can steal it. Like a DJ service where it's not but it's like a live DJ. Like it is your person. It's a person. And they show up and they're like in the waiting room, and then they're like, they're kind of given the greeting and it's kind of awkward, of course, but people would be like, wow, this is cool. Like I'm
Flavor Flav?
Sure. Like I'm paying attention. Right. Like,
I like it.
And then what was the other company? Cameo. Like, why didn't Cameo be like live Zoom appearances? Just think if like Snoop Dogg Zoom bombed your team meeting.
Dude, that's actually Cameo for Zoom is a genius idea. That is actually a really good idea.
I think we should edit that out and keep it. That's a really good idea.
I actually think it's a really good idea.
Why has nobody done that yet?
I mean, honestly, like you could just do Cameo right now. I could just have them introduce me to my client and then just play it when I get onto the call. Like I should just be doing that.
You should be.
Genius, Steve. I mean, like Cameo for client. Like I'm on it.
Well, think about.
I love that, but especially, and again, now tie this back into our conversation. Know your customer. Okay, so if you're talking to someone who like right now, if you got Frank Gore based on our conversation to cameo, the intro to come in, I would be like, whoa, it's Frank Gore.
Yeah.
Like,
and you would remember that meeting.
Oh, forever, right? I'd be like, I know who you are. I talk about you all the time. Like someone would know that, right? Like, like that would be funny. That would be pretty cool. I'm a diehard Golden State Warriors fan. Steph Curry or whoever was like, Millsy, welcome to the podcast. I'd be like, what? Like, I'd remember that forever. But that's what we're talking about, right? Taking things a step further. It doesn't have to be this big, but I like it
too.
But I do like the idea, again, of in your mind, you have to think about, I'm meeting people in the lobby. We're walking through, we're doing what we need to do.
Yeah. They teach this thing, and I'm just going to tell you because I think it's super annoying, but I can see why people understand it. As I'm learning, Jeff, more and more, I'm like re-examining personal communication in my life. Like, so if I say, hey, Jeff, how are you? Like, and truly listen, right? And then I have an imprint of that. And then like those people, if we looked around in our lives, I have one, his name's Vance Thompson. Everybody loves him. Everybody loves him. He owns a company. It's wildly successful. I'm looking at his life going, I don't know where this guy's going to crack because his life looks really good. And it's all based off this ability to be in the relationship dynamic of always giving, always asking how you are, never telling you what he's doing. Even when you ask, the wife and I are going to hit the plane, go to nap. That's it. Fancy stuff. rich people stuff. You probably hate me for it. Like, make a joke about it. How are you and the kids? How's Theo? And I'm like,
Love it.
how'd you even remember I had a kid who's 4? How'd you remember 4? Like, you remembered he was born 4 years ago. You've never met him. And so those people, though, I would do anything for because they make you feel a certain way. And I don't know if that's something that can be taught or learned. Can it?
So being of service mentality will take you very, very far. And I say that all the time: solve problems for your customers. CEOs hire me to solve the revenue problem and solve their kind of like team building problem.
Yeah.
So I solve customers' problems, and then I solve employee problems, and how do I retain them? I continue to solve their problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like being of service as your default, as your like North Star, if you can be in that frame
Yeah.
90% of the time, I think it goes far. Now, I am not as good as Vance. I'm not as good as your friend at not talking.
Yeah.
I'm too anxious, right? Like I'm too spun up or whatever. Like I want to tell people about things and connect
That's
with
you,
them.
though.
And I feel like,
That's you.
but I am of service all the time. So when I say you're in my network now, whenever you need me, you can reach out. That's authentic,
Yeah.
right? I think people do have to be authentic in negotiation as well. If you're authentic and you're of service,
Mm-hmm.
the idea that you're going to get to solving the actual problems at hand is just significantly higher.
Isn't it?
And that's real.
In the same law of, attraction, say a male and a female in a relationship, right? The more the person tries, the less the chances are. The more they don't try, the more it happens. Like, there's all these laws of physics all around us that sort of tell us the truth, yet we all live a different sort of counterproductive actual. It's really odd to me.
I think we get caught in quicksand a lot,
Yeah.
where we get stuck in something, and so we just try so hard to get out, and the harder we try, the more we go down, and we have to like either go all the way down and get kicked out the bottom, of
Not
the
fun.
trap, or you have to stop, slow down, take a deep breath, get back to your North Star, get back to, again, in that same conversation, get back to, wait, how am I being of service right now?
Yeah.
In this podcast right now, how am I helping Steve?
Yeah.
The only reason I joined this call was because I wanted to help Steve. Right. And then if by helping Steve, that ends up helping somebody who listened to the podcast, awesome.
Yes.
Even better.
Yeah.
It's not because I came here because I wanted to get 4 impressions on YouTube later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you came in with that mentality, you came in with the wrong mentality, you're in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
You're not, and then your authenticity is not going to come
Oh, yeah.
through.
It will tell.
You're not solving the problem. It's not going to land. Right.
Yeah. And today everybody's doing content, right? So if on video, which is interesting to me. I love video. I love it because I feel like it's done things for me in terms of selfishly a business of like getting to know people that I've never gotten to know before. Now, I want to reach to that screen and grab you. There's those times, and you get to meet those people in real life, and it's great. And I think that the toughest thing for people is to bring the dynamic that is needed in person on different mediums. So I'll bring up the 3 mediums and we'll wrap here. Video, it's hard, right? You can see you, but I can't feel it. I can't feel the tension in the air necessarily. I don't see all the body language, certainly. Number 2, text, email, whatever, can be very misconstrued, can be very obtrusive, right? Isn't congruent. And I think a lot of sellers want to look at this like, how you doing? How you doing? Instead of like a congruent sort of logical system of like, guide me to.
Don't you love it on chat when people go, hi?
Yeah. Lead me to a safe place. Like as a prospect,
Hi.
they all want to know, like, are you leading me to a safe place? Can I trust you? Can I get to where I want to solve this problem? And are you, when I negotiate now this is where the final question comes. How important is everything up until that point? Because I know this to be true, at least in my life. And I think that you know this to be true, is if the relationship is there, if the value alignment's there, and if you're truly solving a problem, it's really details at that point in time. There shouldn't be a lot of ruffling of the feathers. Is that the accurate statement?
Yeah, you should know the don't ask a woman to marry you if you don't know the answer.
Yeah. That's probably
Like
good advice.
You should know the answer before you get there, right? Like you should know what's going on. And so I would say the same thing. One of the things early in my career, I worked in the gym business. Really early. I've been talking like I was like
Did
19.
you compete with
18.
Alex Hormozy?
I was like the general manager for Channel Hill Clubs when I was still a kid.
Okay.
One of the things I learned, I mean, this is like super early in my life, right? I wouldn't sit down to negotiate the gym membership until I already knew that they wanted to buy one.
Yeah.
Like I would literally have them on the machines, like work, like, oh, try this one out. Hey, let me spot you on this. Hey, check out this. Like I'd have them like working out basically in the gym,
Feeling good,
getting the endorphins going, feeling good, all that kind of. We wouldn't sit down and go over numbers until like I already knew that they were like in.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so that still holds. That's when that holds true to the test of time. Like, don't start talking numbers and negotiating until you've already know they want it.
Yeah.
Until we're good, then that part's a lot easier.
A lot of importance in what you just said. And I think that, thank you. That sums up my value of it is I got a lot of the last sentence that you just said. So go ahead and just rewind that a little bit. Everybody go back and listen to the whole episode here. We chewed on some nuggets. We talked a little bit about AI. Jeff, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you or they want to learn more about what you do and how you help people with AI?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I think it's, I'm Jeff Mills, work at iMirror on LinkedIn. You can find me in about 2 seconds.
Yeah, it's Jeff Mills, JEFFMILLS, president at iMirror Technology.
And it's just, linkedin.com, jmills. You'll find me. That's my LinkedIn handle, I guess.
Last question. What's your North Star in life?
So I work for a social impact company, right? So we create jobs for underserved communities. And so that's not just a tagline or a kind of mission statement that you put on the bottom of your website. I have a company with over 5,000 people, over 80% of them coming from underserved communities, and over 55% are female in the 5,000 people. So, my North Star now is really creating not just revenue impact for a company and becoming profitable and all that, which iMirror is typical, 30% growth type numbers and high EBITDA percentages and things like that. But we're creating jobs for people who really need them, exponentially change their families' lives. And so, I've worked for tech companies for 20 plus years, started in 1998 at Yahoo. And, if I can do things that really solve a problem and create opportunity, that really drives me. So this kind of like do something to be of service mindset I'm talking about isn't, again, just an extra. Like that's hopefully why employees at iMirror are also a 90% retention rate of employees, is because we treat people that way. And the people that I come in contact with, I try to treat that way every day. So, I love my family, obviously, but even there, I'm trying to help my kids. I'm trying to help my wife. Like I'm trying to be of service as much as I can.
It's a good mission. Jeff.
So on this podcast, is it this today?
Oh, look at that. He's got this
going. Or is it this today?
Sunshine. Hey, look at this, everybody. Jeff Mills does not mess around. Jeff, thank you so much. My name is Steve Schmidt. I'm with Jeff Mills from iMirror Technology, and this was the Maker Connect podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks so much.